pro-Donald Trump attorney turns herself in, has been arrested, has been booked, and the RNC, well, they're going to pay the legal bills of Donald Trump like I told you. Put up the picture full mass. Let's first start with this pro-Trump attorney who, according to the allegations, attempted to, once again, overthrow the election in another state on behalf of the Trump regime. Per CNN, pro-Trump lawyer Stefanie Lambert surrendered on Thursday. Now, if you remember earlier in the week, Indisputable brought you this story. At that time, she had an active warrant for her arrest. She was held in another court in order to honor the warrant in another state. She surrendered Thursday to Michigan authorities in connection with her 2020 election tampering indictment after a wild week where she was labeled a fugitive and spent a night in jail after being arrested in Washington, D.C. The special prosecutor who charged Lambert in Michigan, DJ Hilson, confirmed that the attorney turned herself in on Thursday morning and appeared in Oakland County Circuit Court. Quote, the judge ruled that the Michigan bench warrant is now set aside. And she was taken into custody for the sole purpose of collecting her DNA and fingerprints, Hilson said. Lambert's attorney, Daniel Hartman, also confirmed that she surrendered, as she pledged to do after being released by a local DC judge earlier this week. Hartman said Lambert's fingerprints will not be entered into the system until further order of the court. Lambert has been fighting an effort by prosecutors to take her fingerprints. Well, why is that, ma'am? With millions watching and many people benefiting from this program called Indisputable, we just need 1% of the viewers to become a paid member so we can continue to bring this content to you. Now back to the show. Something doesn't seem right here. What are you afraid your fingerprints may be on that the system will be able to, I don't know, match up? That's just speculation from my part. But I will say this is definitely in the spirit of MAGA, making attorneys get attorneys. Because now this attorney has to have an attorney in order to talk to the attorneys prosecuting said attorney. The surrender came days after Lambert's arrest at the federal courthouse in DC. If you remember, she was taken into custody while she was at that courthouse Monday by U.S. Marshals immediately after she participated in a 2-hour hearing in Dominion Voting Systems defamation case against her client. Ex-Overstock CEO Patrick Byrne, regarding his false statements about the 2020 election. That hearing in the DC-based defamation case was about Lambert's recent leak of internal Dominion emails, which she obtained through her representation of Byrne. So she leaked these emails. These emails had personal information, identifying information, addresses, etc. And a sheriff who looks like Colonel Sanders' nephew decided to be part of the conspiracy and release these records against court order and really normative professional standards. There's more, but Lambert's DC arrest and her surrender in Michigan on Thursday were due to a warrant that was issued after she failed to appear. So there was an FTA on her record as well. She had a failure to appear due to a warrant she was issued after recent hearings in her criminal case. She was indicted last year in connection with an attempt to basically overthrow an election, a system breach in Michigan, which was one of the multiple incidents in battleground states where Donald Trump supporters tried to prove their voter fraud theories after he lost the 2020 election. Meanwhile, according to a fundraising invitation obtained by the Associated Press, Donald Trump's new joint fundraising agreement with the RNC is on and popping. As I said, the only reason he wanted to seize control of the Republican National Committee is for them to pay his legal bills. This is just the beginning. So the Republican National Committee directs donations to his campaign and a political action committee that pays the former president's legal bills before the RNC gets a cut. That's right, Donald. Just take it off the top, man. Don't worry about paying bills. You haven't worried about paying anybody's bills, including yours, for a very long time. Just take it off the top, okay? Let everybody else fight for the pennies that you leave them. There's more. And by the way, I love it. That's less money for the ridiculous ideology of Republicans across the country. Yes, keep indictments coming against Donald Trump so he can take more money from the RNC and pay for them. All right? The unorthodox diversion, that's what they're calling it, unorthodox diversion of funds to the Save America Political Action Committee makes it more likely that Republican donors could see their money go to Trump's lawyers, who have received at least a cool $76 million over the last 2 years to defend him against 4 felony indictments and multiple civil cases. Some Republicans are already troubled that Trump's takeover of the RNC could shortchange the cash-strapped party. Once again, I said all of this on day one. Remember when I told Republicans, do you think you're going to be able to rely on the RNC in order to get some type of campaign money, resources? No. Do you think he's going to care about making sure you have Republican governors or Republican members of Congress? Hell no, not even close. The first obligation will be to the priority of Donald Trump and his personal issues. So Trump has invited high dollar donors to Palm Beach for an April 6th fundraiser that comes as his fundraising is well behind Joe Biden and National Democrats. The invitation's fine print says donations to the Trump 47 committee will first be used to give the maximum amount allowed under federal law to Trump's campaign. Anything left over from the donation next goes toward a maximum contribution to Save America. And then anything left from there goes to the RNC and then to state politicians. Oh, state political parties. The Republican state political party apparatus will be completely underfunded. Complete. And they're telling you how they're going to rob you. This is the most amazing and ironic part about it. They're literally saying, here's what we're going to do. We're going to steal your money this way, and then we're going to steal it that way. And then after we steal it those 2 ways, if you got any damn money left over, we're going to steal it this way. All right? You got me? Show up on April 6th to get robbed. Okay, put them up full mass. Dave Noti, the executive director of the Nonpartisan Campaign Legal Center in Washington, said, this is a break from fundraising norms. And usually candidates prioritize raising cash that can be spent directly on campaign activity, right? Save America, on the other hand, is structured as a leadership PAC and thus barred from spending directly on Trump's own campaign activities. Legal spending made up 85% of Save America's total operating expenses during the first 2 months of this year, roughly the same as 2023, when such expenses were about 89%. It has spent $8.5 million on legal fees so far this year. The reason most candidates don't do this is because the hardest money to raise is money that can be spent directly on the campaign, said the executive director. A former staff attorney for the Federal Election Commission. No other candidate has used a leadership PAC the way the Trump campaign has. No other president, at least in recent history, has used the presidency in the way that Trump did. My dear brother, David, you see the writing on the wall. You understand exactly what's happening. I'm sure you called it just like I did before it happened. Here's why he was doing it, in order to make sure he got more money personally. What say you?
Well, if the Associated Press wants to describe it as an unorthodox diversion, which is mild to say the least, there's basically no floor now for Donald Trump, right? Because We saw the other day how Donald Trump's own lawyers acknowledged that there's a possibility of Donald Trump may try to get his bond money from Russia and Saudi Arabia. Now we see that the Donald Trump campaign is essentially siphoning money away from the RNC. The RNC, as you pointed out, didn't have many crumbs to begin with. And again, for people who are not so familiar with politics, I mean, a party apparatus is what gets out the organization, the telecommunications, the emails, all the sort of function of a campaign, aside from actually having the candidate go out and give speeches. And so when you have local candidates who can't rely on their party for anything, that puts them in a lot of trouble. And there's every indication, of course, that Donald Trump's legal bills are only going to grow because his cases continue to intensify when you start to get into trials, and then the burn rate goes even higher. So this is awful news for Republicans. And I actually feel badly for a number of Republicans who believe, perhaps because I've had principles and conservative principles, whatever, I think they're wrong, but they give money to the party thinking that this will actually help them. And instead, they're being grifted, right? And the money is going to Donald Trump's own lawyers. And I think there are a number of good Americans out there, misguided as they are, who are going to wake up and say, no, wait a second, this isn't what I gave them money for.
Right. I mean, you got to think about it. 85, 90% of the PAC money going toward legal bills, a New York pimp would have gave you better margins than what Trump has given here. Hell of a thing.